The year 2016 started on a rather worrisome note. The global growth expectations have been pared down by most of the multilateral agencies. And in this environment, we see domestic factors as the key driver of growth in India. And our expectation for 2016-17 fiscal is that the growth will inch up to 7.9% from 7.6% in the previous fiscal year. And that too is contingent on two developments. One, that we get normal rains. And second, that the global environment doesn't worsen too much from what we expect at this juncture. Now, how is the recovery going to play out? I think consumption is the major driver of recovery in our case. And private consumption, which is about 55% of GDP, will be driven by four factors. One of them is the higher incomes of the veterans because of OROP, and higher incomes of the public sector employees in general because of the pay commission. So that's going to give a delta to their incomes and help boost consumption a little bit. The second factor that is going to help the consumption recovery is very mildly is that the crude prices are going to stay low, and that's going to reduce the gas bill for many of the consumers. And then third factor is that interest rate transmission will be much smoother and hopefully faster. We expect central bank to cut rates by about 50 basis points in 2016. And if that happens, along with the better transmission of rates, because the banks will probably move over to the marginal cost of funding, I think as a consequence of this, we'll see the interest rate coming down and its impact on the economy being more benign than it was in the last fiscal year. Now I think so these, on top of these three factors, is a big one, which is the monsoons. And if the rains play out well, given that government has focused on the rural economy, they have increased allocations to the rural economy, and if you have monsoons also normal, then both these factors put together will create an environment where the rural economy will start moving up, and that will balance the currently one-legged recovery in consumption. Only the urban part is doing well, the rural is not. So I think once you have the rural consumption also move up, then the consumption recovery will be more balanced. Once this happens, your capacity utilization in some of the sectors will move up, and that will result in recovery of private investment cycle. Now, private investment cycle there are some signs that it's moving up a little bit, and I think that's generally due to the regulatory reasons. The government has been pushing investments in many segments, and also because I think the government has managed to de-risk the private sector's role in infrastructure participation to some extent. The genuine recovery, which is broad-based, will take some time, and I think we expect the overall investment to start recovering towards the end of fiscal 2016-17. The recovery in 2016-17 will be essentially driven by monsoons, and it will be agriculture-led recovery. Beyond 2016-17, it will be the recovery in private corporate investment. I think it's very critical for sustained recovery of the economy that private corporate investment cycle revives, and I think that depends to some extent on demand recovery, but also to some extent on what the government does. So government has to relentlessly pursue its reform agenda. The steps that it has announced in 2015 have to be followed through. The Uday reforms have to be made a success of, and also the Indradhanush for the public sector banks. And if on top of that you have GST and the bankruptcy code also getting passed, then the sentiment will also get a boost. And I think all this can come together to create a sustainable recovery for the Indian economy beyond 2016-17.